is up, Bizarrites and Inquirers, and welcome to the 2025 Bizarre Reality Media Christmas Special. I am the one that they often refer to as Shane, aka the original Shane Squatch. And alongside me, as usual, I have the big bad Boo Daddy himself, Sir Orin Felix. How's it going today, man?
Going pretty good. I've got my festive holiday hat and my Art the Clown glasses on. So, I mean, this is about as Christmassy as I get here. So, I'm really laying it on thick for you guys tonight. But how are you doing?
I got the same
tonight,
thing
Shane?
going on. Apparently, great minds think alike. I particularly bought this hat special for the show because it says Bah Humbug. And for anybody that may not know, A Christmas Carol is my absolute favorite of all the Christmas stories. And because I am the Shane Squatch, of course, I have my Merry Squatchmas shirt on. So feeling completely festive here. And an uncalled for note on the show, something that I don't think has ever happened before on the show. I actually have a special beer for tonight's episode.
Oh.
It's called Krampusbach, and it is a German-style Bach lager that is special for the Christmas show today. So it's a from Oddside, I guess. It's a Michigan brewing company. I recently went to Frankenmuth, which is like a Christmas town, for my son's birthday, and ended up picking up a couple of local ales. And yeah, figured I'd pick this one up for the show so we could crack a cold one for Christmas Eve, man.
Well, tonight
Christmas Eve when people are listening.
I'm sipping on a Bud Light from Anheuser-Busch out of St. Louis, Missouri.
Well, that's lame. You got to have some type of Christmas brew. Oh, we got to have the crack though. You know how that goes.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh,
First
and I forgot to
crack
mention
from this side.
I'm also wearing my cousin Eddie Shitter's Full t-shirt. So
oh, even better. There you go.
Yeah.
Feeling fully festive, man.
Just really went all out for you guys tonight.
That kind of leads way into some of the stuff that we might be potentially getting into today. But before we do that, we of course have to lead way in with some of our traditions. So of course I have to ask Orin. A lot of people, they have these regular things they do every year, be it watching particular Christmas movies or doing particular things. Do you have any Christmas traditions over on your side, man?
I don't know. Growing up, I think we just kind of did like pretty normal stuff. I mean, just like always went to, grandparents' house on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and, just watching Christmas movies throughout the season and just like really normal stuff. But, now that all my parents and family are dead, Jenny's parents are dead, we're kind of like trying to start new traditions and start like new, kind of family Christmas stuff for our little family. So, the past few years, it's been kind of nice to start building new traditions and be a little less traditional with things. So, that was really long-winded, but what about you?
Honestly, it kind of leads way into what I was going to say. I have my own Christmas traditions that I've kind of formed all on my own. Like a lot of people, I grew up in a split household, so the Christmas traditions didn't necessarily always hold. But one of the main things that I always kept through with me was on Christmas night, I'd always watch Scrooged because Bill Murray is absolutely like one of my favorite actors and comedians ever. And obviously, like I said, A Christmas Carol was one of my absolute favorites. So every single Christmas Eve, starting from the time that I was probably 13 or 14, I had watched Scrooged on Christmas Eve by myself. And it got to this point where the cool part is it eventually transitioned into when I had a family and stuff because as soon as, I ended up having kids and everything, that's become one of the Christmas traditions every single year is that we watch Scrooged on Christmas Eve. So it's kind of funny. It started off as just this lone little thing that I would do by myself. And it's turned into this like main Christmas tradition that we do every single year on top of course, the kids making Christmas cookies for Santa because that was something I always wished that I did when I was a kid and never got the opportunity to do it. So, dude, same boat as you, man. Starting to create these new traditions. And, of course, Bill Murray has to be part of that.
Have I ever told you my Bill Murray story?
Oh, I didn't know you had a Bill Murray story. Otherwise, I feel like I would have definitely remembered this.
Well, if I've already told this, stop me, or if you just want me to go on with it so the listeners can hear. But, a couple years ago, me and Jenny went on a cruise, and it left from Charleston, South Carolina. And I guess, several years ago, probably 20 or 30 years, Bill Murray recorded some movie in Charleston and just fell in love with it, moved down there, bought a house. He owns the minor league baseball team down there. But anyway, so the night before the cruise, we went down earlier and we're just hanging out. And we went into this Chicago sports themed bar that they had. I guess Bill Murray's originally from Chicago. And we were just sitting there having a couple beers, and this group of younger people came in and sat down at the end of the bar. And one of them asked the bartender, hey, can we sit here? And the bartender goes, yeah, but that seat right there is Bill Murray's. So if he comes in, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. And I was like, hey, if Bill Murray comes in, he can have my seat. Like, no questions asked. But anyway, that's my Bill Murray story.
Dude, I would gladly give up my seat for Bill Murray. I've had this ongoing joke with Gabby since I met her that if we ever get married, I'm going to send out a random invitation to Bill Murray just to see if he would answer, because seems like the type of dude. He just like randomly shows up places and just has fun with people.
Up.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like there's a good possibility. The problem is we just have to get married before he gets too old, because I feel like we're starting to approach that point where you kind of have to keep an eye on Bill Murray, and he's like the last Hunter S. Thompson type we have left. So we have to protect him at all costs.
Well, you need to tell her y'all need to put a little hustle up on that if you want old Bill to show up.
I just want him to show up and start, handing out shots of tequila when people ask for beer or something, because that seems to be his typical motif of what he does at college campuses and stuff. So.
Well, hey, if he's not sitting at his reserved bar stool in Charleston,
he'll be sitting at his reserved table at my wedding, I guess.
There you go.
Well, hopping into what we're going to get into today, obviously, considering we dive into a lot of bizarre stuff on the show, we are going to definitely be diving into some bizarre Christmas folklore, Christmas stories, all that type of stuff. But one of the first places that I wanted to start was something that I feel like I've been teasing for a while on the show, the Yule Lads, and all of the weirdness with the Yule Lads. So I guess this will be the first spot we'll start, and then we'll go from there. So let's bring it on up.
All right, let's do it.
So this is definitely, I'd say, one of the more obscure Christmas stories. It's one of those ones where I feel like everybody knows the mom. She's been referenced in a few different movies, but the Yule Lads are always referenced as the Yule Lads, but nobody really goes into the particulars of what they are and what they represent exactly. And that's where the best part of the Yule Lads comes in. So fortunately, I was able to find some good visuals where you guys will have a visual representation of all of the bizarreness that is the Yule Lads. But of course, we first have to talk about their mother and get into who they are exactly and where they come from. So without further ado, who are the Icelandic Yule Lads? Who is celebrated in Iceland at Christmas, if not for Santa Claus? What role does the giantess Gryla play in Icelandic Christmas folklore? And who is the Christmas cat? Read on to learn about Gryla and the Yule Lads, Iceland's most famous Christmas characters. So let's see, we'll slide on down here. Instead of the loving Santa Claus many Western cultures are familiar with, the 13 Yule Lads of Iceland are known for their mischief. Their mother, Gryla, is a monstrous ogre that kidnaps and eats naughty children, and if you don't get a nice piece of clothing before the holidays, you can expect a visit from the Yule Cat, who shares her appetite. And for whatever reason on this article, they keep telling you to read on, like you're not already reading it, but... All right, we'll get into, let's see, where's the first one start at? So first Yule Lad that we got to talk about here is, do you want to comically try to take attempts at these names? Because of course it'll be translated, but I feel like we should go back and forth taking really, really crude attempts at these translations of these names.
I try really hard not to say words I don't know how to pronounce, so that's all on you. If you want to struggle through those, you can, and I'll read the English translation. How about that?
All right, this sounds fun. We got to at least set it up that way. All right,
okay.
So Stekjastur. Stekjastur. I'm going to go with that. Stekjastur.
Which means the sheep coat clod.
And to give a brief description of this guy, the first of the Yule Lads to leave the mountains to stir up trouble across Iceland was Stastruak, a sheep coat clot, from the 12th of December until the 26th. His modus operandi was to harass the sheep of any household he came across. Icelanders would usually keep their sheep underground in the winter months, so when the sounds of their tormented bleating would echo into the house, it was a sign, Storchakr, blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to eventually get to that point. You know how that usually turns out. Had found them. Such a sound, though common in the winter months, with storms regularly harassing the flock. Because even more ominous, particularly considering that sheep were the lifeblood of every homestead. In spite of being a fearsome troll, the sheep clot, like many of his brothers, was limited by a deformity. His stiff legs impaired his ability to move, so the best thing to do when hearing him rule up your animals was to wait it out. He'd have to move onto your neighbor's house soon in order to terrorize as many Icelandic homes as possible by sunrise. And he's apparently got some peg legs. You see this shit?
Yeah, that's a little gnarly looking.
And obviously with this one, like most of these traditions, and I think we were talking about it recently with Pat Spain on the show about how there's the necessity for certain things of folklore. I think this is one of those things, and as we go through the Yule lads, this will be one of those things that you'll see. This was definitely one of those ones where, of course, you wanted to warn people to keep their livestock safe, and if not, you could potentially die through the winter. So one of the good ways of doing that, of course, was to scare everybody into thinking that this guy was going to come for your livestock if you didn't have them all bundled up. So again, another useful piece of folklore. All right, do you want to make an attempt at this one?
Gila Jaguar?
That was my best guess, too. I saw the word jaguar in there, and that was going to be my best guess. And then Gully Guac. That's just as bad as the non-English translation, in all fairness.
It's pretty close.
The Gully Guac was the second Icelandic Yule lad to arrive in human settlements. Hiding in the gullies around a house, waiting until his residents have fallen asleep, his method of troublemaking was to break into the cowshed to steal any milk available. In doing so, he robbed families of their key ingredients to the sauces meant to be enjoyed over the festive season, not to mention the traditional skyr. Although only wealthier Icelanders owned cows, most poor people historically lived in the farmsteads of the rich, meaning all were affected by this troll's antics.
So I just have to throw in the illustration for this one for all of you audio listeners out there. It's this man who is like 69ing basically a cow and like sucking on its teats.
It's a very provocative image, just to say the least. I mean, obviously they infer that he steals the cow's milk, but I wouldn't have assumed that he would be stealing it directly out of the cow. My assumption would be out of like a saucer or somewhere where you potentially store milk, but apparently he's just going right for it. He's just raw dogging that
let's just say it's definitely unpasteurized when he steals it.
Giving a whole new definition to raw milk, if you know what I'm saying. All right, we got Stuffer or Stubby.
Stubby.
Good old Stubby. The third Yule lad, Stuffer or Stubby, becomes a nuisance throughout Iceland at Christmas by stealing the household's pans for their delicious crust that remains on them. From the 14th to the 26th of December, his appetite was insatiable. While this may seem like a terrible crime, while this may not seem like a terrible crime, historically pots and pans were incredibly valuable in Iceland, the country that no iron reserves or a mining industry of its own, and such goods had to be imported and were very expensive. For some impoverished families, they were the only possessions worth anything that they had. So, of course, this one is about keeping and preserving your pans properly. Of course, you want to make sure you finish every last scrap of food. That's, of course, very important. But I'm also assuming that considering that these pans had to be imported and were very expensive, it was also a matter of taking care of these pans and making sure that they weren't remaining dirty and having issues with, rusting, all that kind of shit. But you got any ideas on Stubby? Good old Stubby here.
No, this picture's not even funny at all. It can't beat the 69ing cow.
No, this one's literally just a midget that steals your cake, or that steals your pie. Which is a problem.
That could be kind of naughty too, I guess.
Well, here's another naughty suggestive picture for you, my friend. We got that. I know that was anywhere near it, but that's my best guess.
It's close enough. It's the spoon licker. Spoon licker, hell, I just met her.
The spoon licker, the fourth Yule lad, is known in English as the spoon licker. This Christmas troll set out on his nationwide tour of mischief on the 14th of December each year to break into homes of Icelanders and lick the spoons of households in the hopes of a morsel to eat. The spoon licker behavior was a result of his strange deformity. He was grotesquely thin from malnourishment, usually amongst trolls who were most often depicted as overweight and muscular beasts, which also just to point in the fact that if his mom is going and she's eating all of these children, she can't spare a morsel for her good old son, the spoon licker. She can't even let him lick the spoon of her children's supper. Just a question. I think there's some issues here with the parenting, but that's just my opinion. The lesser to be learned from the spoon licker behavior is less apparent than with many of the other Yule lads, although it is perhaps as simple as ensuring children clean their cutlery, or, again, going back down to eating every single last drop of your food in order to keep yourself alive through the Christmas season. Yeah,
that's kind of where I go with that one.
You got any thoughts on the spoon licker image?
It's pretty funny, but still can't beat the 69ing cow. So
good old 69
if we're power ranking the images, this one's probably number 2, the spoon licker.
Hopefully we will have some more in this competition, but there's some definitely bizarre ones, but I don't know if any of the pictures are going to get nearly as good as the 69 in cow, but you know. All right, next up we have the pot scraper. The pot scraper is like many of his brothers in that his Christmas hijinks are gluttonous, breaking into one home after another. He seeks out pots of sauce, chunks of roast meat left on the tray, saucepans of seasonal vegetables, and scorns of anything left over to eat. Pot scraper has no doubt
Pot
created.
liquor would be stupid, Shane.
Yeah, like these names aren't stupid enough already, but I had to go back up and check. I don't know if you caught that. Pot scraper was no doubt created to encourage children to finish their meals. Leftovers, many bring him sniffing at the door. As foodstuffs were meant to be preserved to last throughout the long winter months, any waste was generally frowned upon. This was because no one dared a fishing trip onto the tumultuous seas in this season, or wanted to slaughter an animal that could otherwise help with sustaining their livelihood in summer. And look, I was close enough on this one. I mean, I almost mixed this one up with his other brother. I mean, next up we have the bolt liquor.
They're just licking everything over there in Iceland, aren't they?
It's just really, really about tongues, apparently.
Yeah,
over in Japan,
bitches.
It's all about buttholes, and apparently in Iceland, it's all about what you can lick. So, so next up, again, we have the bowl liquor. The bowl liquor is out stealing milk. Gully Whack is out stealing milk. Stubby is menacing on the crusts of pans. Pot scraper is scorning down leftovers, and skinny spoon liquor is doing exactly what his name suggests. Also on the hunt for an easy morsel was the sixth brother, bowl liquor. Had to go back up and check again. Although his antics were perhaps the creepiest thus far.
I don't know. That's going to be tough to beat.
I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. He has a reputation for slurping the remains of whatever is left in bowls, or rather of an uka, which is an Icelandic type of carved bowl with a lid. But the way he does it is rather nightmarish. Each night, bowl liquor would quite literally lay beneath a child's bed, waiting for them to finish their nighttime super pudding. When they were satisfied, he would readily snatch up the remaining food to guzzle down himself, perhaps created to get children to go to sleep. When asked, or not to indulge in a midnight snack, he emphasizes the trope of a monster under the bed. And yeah, that's probably the creepiest one so far, I'd say.
Yeah. Next
up, we have the door slammer. And this guy is jacked as fuck. I don't know if you can see that, but this dude looks real fucking jacked from slamming doors. Let's see. Door slammer has a modus operandi he learned from another of the older horror tropes. In English, his name, the door slammer, and this Yule lad embarks on his 13th day journey over the festive season. It is all he intends to do. Until the end of the month, he would sneak from home to home, reaching the furthest ends of the Westjorfs to the bursting center of, I'm not even going to attempt that, to break in and bang as many doors as he could in order to wake the sleeping inside. It is doubtless that with the high winds of Iceland's winter and the makeshift design of the turf houses in Iceland, many of the children was kept wide. I'm not even going to attempt this one. Anyways, he would just basically come in and slam your door shut if you didn't fucking close your door. And he got real fucking jacked from doing it. Just to point that out.
Yeah, so like you said, I mean, all of these are basically like cautionary tales. It seems like to me, like, don't let food go to waste. Take care of your possessions, take care of your animals, close the door, make sure the heat doesn't, escape in the winter. So I think it's kind of funny, like a lot of like Native American stories we talk about, this is in a very similar vein.
And honestly, I think all has to do with the land, because it seemed like in America, you had to be somewhat nomadic, and it was really, really hard to plant things properly, which was obviously the struggle with a lot of the colonists when they started coming over here, is that they couldn't figure out what could actually grow together. Iceland, totally different antic, but it's kind of the same thing in a way. Extremely hard to sustain yourself through the winter. So you have to create these tales in order to get everybody on the same page of this stuff. Because of course, if you say, oh yeah, if you don't eat all your food, we're not going to have enough for the winter, that doesn't scare kids enough. You have to tell them, if you don't eat all of your food, some creepy little troll is going to hide under your bed and he's going to lick every single last aspect of your fucking crumbs. So you better eat every single aspect of your food.
Or the pot liquor will get you.
Yeah, or the fucking pot liquor will get you. So I'm assuming this one, going back into another one that has to do with stealing food, the Skyrel Gobbler, which, however you pronounce that word, it is the Icelandic bowl that it was referenced a couple back. But the meals leading to Christmas are without a doubt some of the best of the year. One can indulge in perfectly cooked poultry, nut roast, mince pies, gingerbread men, cinnamon rolls, and the manner of other treats. This season in Iceland, however, one dish deserves an extra special mention: the delicious and creamy skyr. This healthy, tasty traditional dairy product can fairly be described as one of Iceland's most true delicacies, especially when compared to the dishes such as hakri, which is fermented shark, and rumsenburg, which is ram's testicles. I mean, to each your own, I guess. While a delight the year round, skyra is a particular treat over Christmas, served as a refreshment from the number of huge roast meats that usually accompany the holidays. In traditions of Icelandic Christmas folklore, however, people were not only ones craving skyra at the time of year, it is also the favorite meal of the 8th Icelandic Yule lad, skyro or Skyrel Gobbler. From the 18th until the 30th, the national delight, a complement to both sweet and savory dishes, was under careful watch should it fall into the hands of the nefarious troll. So basically, eat all of your special Christmas treat, otherwise this guy will come and snatch it from you. Mm-hmm. And this one may be potentially your favorite.
Man, this one's good.
This one is almost as good as the 69ing cow, especially when you see this horrifying face. But I'm not even going to attempt this name because there's just way too many J's. There's one J, but it looks like should be a lot of J's in there. But this guy is the sausage snatcher. Smoked meat is one of the favorite smoking meat is one of the favorite cooking methods in Iceland. Smoking fish and lamb are popular throughout the year, as well as smoking sausages known in Iceland as bjugga. Best attempt, maybe? Baharuga. I don't know. I feel like the J's pronounce as H's, but whatever. From the night of the 20th, however, vigilance was required when preparing the buja. It was only piece of food that the 9th Yule lad, the sausage snatcher, wanted to get his grubby hands on. The sausage snatcher had a perfect way of stealing this Icelandic delicacy. It was said that he would break into homes, hide in the rafters, waiting for dinner to be cooked before swooping from above to snatch them. So hide your sausage, hide your wives, hide everything. The good old sausage snatcher is hiding in your roof, and he is going to steal your sausage.
He's like the Spring Hill Jack of sausage snatching.
This is a good one. I like that. That's probably my favorite one so far.
That's a good one.
Maybe not the most provocative picture, but probably the best as far as name goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could have done a little better with the illustration on that one. I mean, he's literally called the sausage snatcher. For the milk stealing one, we got the 69ing cow, and we just get this really PG rated image for the sausage snatcher. That's disappointing.
Why is there not a extremely sensual picture of him just holding a sausage? Just so, you know what I mean? Just not too much grip, just enough grip to hold it firmly, but not too much, because you don't want to let go, but you also don't want to grip it too tight.
Hey, to each their own.
Yeah. And this one also very provocative. We have the window peeper. And he looks like he's trying to snatch something up too with his little pinchy fingers.
Yeah.
The 10th Yule lad is to descend from over the festive season was perhaps the creepiest of all, the window peeper. Considered the darkest of Icelandic's winters, I'm just fucking up on reading today, man. I'm sorry. Considering the darkness of Iceland's winters, whether there are only 4 hours of sunlight a day around Christmas, it takes a little imagination to picture the fear children must have felt passing the window of their homes on Christmas nights, terrified that this fearsome troll was looking in upon them. Like several of the other characters mentioned above, it seems like the window peeper's chilling behavior was designed as a way to scare children from going outside in the dark winters. Apparently, winters is plural. It is also considered that the children eat. It is also a reminder that the children eating Gryla had eyes across the country, looking out for mischievance. This is a good one. The doorway sniffer.
Mm.
The doorway sniffer may have come into folklore due to the whistling. I just need a restart, man. I am fucking up this reading today. Ugh. All right. Doorway sniffer may have come into folklore due to the whistling breaths of the wind creeping through Iceland's drafty turf houses. Similar to window peeper and door slammer, the idea of him creeping into a home to cause mayhem haunted the nightmares of Iceland's children. This was exacerbated by the fact that, got to go back up, doorway sniffer was renowned for his enormous nose, massive even for his kind. The reason for his sniffing was also nefarious. He was forever seeking out his favorite meal, the Icelandic delicacy of leaf bread? I don't know what the fuck that is, but okay. The delicacy, the delicious treat, is only baked during Christmas time, and making it often a cherished family affair, especially in the north. It is notable for being around very thin. It is notable for. Am I reading this wrong, or is this a typo?
It is notable for being round, very thin, fried, and decorated with intricate patterns, usually leaves. No, I think just the commas were in weird spaces in that sentence.
I thought it was going into a description of him. That's what fucked me up. I was like, what? Anyways, getting into the next one, we have the meat hook. Or why can't this guy be called the meat hooker? That would be even better, right?
I mean, it would definitely be funnier.
Christmas culinary traditions vary significantly between families, but there is one common central feature to most festive feasts, and that's the meat. In Icelandic folklore, however, this was the largest target of thievery from the 12th and penultimate. Go ahead, Orin. What is it?
Penultimate. That means like the one before the last one.
There you go. Thank you for teaching me also a new word.
The word of the day.
Yule lad, meat hook. I was going to call him meat hooker anyways, but...
No, we should just make the executive decision. He's meat hooker from here on out.
If it brings up his name again, he will officially be known as the meat hooker. Lurking wherever he had access to a kitchen, behind doors, under tables, in cut boards, outside open windows, he would lay in wait for the meat of any dish to be slapped onto the counter.
That's kind of provocative how they worded that.
I love that. It seems like him and the sausage snatcher should probably team up.
Yeah.
As soon as he could avoid capture, he'd pull out his long hook and snatch himself the centerpiece of the family meal. Unlike his brother, the meat hooker, no, the meat sausage snatcher, who would smoke sausage, the meat hook. I'm just going to call him meat hooker. The meat hooker was God damn it.
Indiscriminate
in his taste and would wait until his whole family would fall asleep before swooping in and stealing whatever meat was hanging around.
So basically what they're saying is, the sausage snatcher, he was picky, but the meat hooker, he was just a little hoe. He'd snatch any meat.
He'll take whatever he can get, man. He's not too picky. He's down for any meat. Thick meat, thin meat, short meat, long meat. He's just down for some meat. And getting into the final Yule lad. The final Yule lad is the candle stealer. That one isn't as provocative, but totally understand what the reasoning for this might be. The candle beggar, or the candle stealer, he emerges on Christmas Eve in Iceland. Like his 12 brothers, his name is self-explanatory, although the consequences of his hijinks were more troublesome than them may have appeared. There you go. That one is a typo.
That is a typo,
may
yes.
have appeared. In the past, candles were incredibly valuable in Iceland, providing light throughout the winter darkness. As noted, this lasts about 12 hours a day over Christmas. Candles were also valuable tools for Iceland to enjoy their historical favorite pastime of reading. And over Christmas in Iceland, everyone getting together to read in their old tradition. Anyways, moving on a little bit, Gryla, of course, the mom, as we've kind of talked about a little bit throughout the episode, she is the one that would snatch misbehaving children, and she would boil them into a pot. And let's see, does it go into a description of her husband? Because I did forget the description of her husband. No, it does not get into a description of her husband. It also doesn't get into a description of the Yule Cat, but we do have another article that we will be bringing up at some point here where we'll be diving into the Yule Cat. So I guess that about wraps it up for the 13 Yule Lads. And next we'll be hopping into whatever Orin has today. And I don't think you have any article or anything like that you sent me, so I don't have anything to bring up for this one.
No, so I didn't bring an article or a video or anything like that. But for a lot of our longtime listeners, we are going to talk about something that we've talked about a little bit on the show before. So as all of you will know, I'm a big fan of these Where the Footprints End series of books. It's by Joshua Cutchin and Timothy Renner, who we recently had as a guest on our show. I believe that was episode 113. And basically, the premise of these books is looking at the Bigfoot phenomenon through the lens of other like folklore and legends. So kind of like, how Passport from Magonia by Jacques Vallée looks at the UFO phenomenon through like the lens of old European fairy tales and things like that. These books kind of do the same thing, but with Bigfoot. But anyway, without a doubt, my favorite part of these books is this chapter that talks about the connections between like Santa Claus and the European Wildman tradition and all of its connections to Bigfoot. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Shane, do you have anything to add before I get started?
I do not believe that I do, but I will try to find some pictures so that we can talk about this along the way.
Okay. So I'm going to start off with a quote from the book. It says, quote, "Though retaining some traits and habits of his predecessors, Santa has become a kinder, gentler wild man, groomed, refined, and repackaged for commercial viability. This kindly holiday avatar, however, grew from a frightening tradition populated with roaming hordes of wild men and bloodthirsty women in white." So some of the things that Renner and Cutchin talk about in the book is that Santa is obviously very associated with gifting. And as a lot of you guys know, gifting is a big thing in the Bigfoot community. And, we leave offerings to Santa, offerings, quote unquote, of milk and cookies. And this is like really similar to, people leaving, treats or apples or whatever on their altars to Bigfoot. Also, Santa, is often seen in the company of elves, which are kind of like fae folk, which I think is kind of interesting. And Santa is known for landing his sleigh on rooftops and making noise. And in a lot of Bigfoot encounters, they're said to, quote, climb upon roofs where they make considerable noise. And, that's something that we've come across time and time again on the show is, in these Bigfoot encounters, they'll throw rocks on your roof or, tap on your windows or look through your windows and things of that nature. So do you have anything to add before we shift gears just a little bit?
I'm already fascinated by the concept, but you can keep going, my friend.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some other kind of wild man adjacent holiday figures at this point. And I'm going to start with another quote. This one says, "In the not too distant past, the wintertime holidays were recognized as a time of darkness, a time when the fae folk and other things prowled the cold, wintry nights." So, everybody knows about Krampus. I feel like every show's kind of talked about it at this point. There's no reason for us to really go over Krampus. But there's this other entity known as the Belsnickel, which is fun to say. And this thing comes from Pennsylvania Dutch folklore, and he's, quote, "a wild man sharing many qualities and behaviors with Bigfoot. Also, quote, a mischievous hobgoblin that makes his presence known by cunning tricks of fairyism," which kind of sounds like a trickster type entity to me. So he's also said to be a rascal who used to play rat-a-tat-tat on the kitchen door and a fiend who ran around houses making queer noises and tapping on the windows, and who was infamous for having always rattled the windows and doors. So again, this kind of gets back to not only Bigfoot, throwing rocks and showing up on people's roofs and knocking on their windows and doors and things like that. But, this is something we've talked about with a lot of other paranormal cases as well. It brings to mind the Hopkinsville Goblins case to me, where they were looking through windows and kind of knocking on doors and terrorizing this family. There is another entity known as, I believe it would be pronounced Perchta, Perchta. And this is a white-clad hag figure, and she's associated with a group of wild men called the Perched, I believe it would be pronounced, Percht. And she's also associated with, quote, souls of dead children who appear as lights. So this is kind of like orbs or will-o'-the-wisps or, kind of ghost light type situations. She's also associated with gifting and has, quote, a giant bird's foot. And I don't know if you remember me talking about the Baba Yaga. which is kind of like Eastern European crone or hag type figure that is known for also stealing children and is known for living in a house that sits on birds' legs. So a lot of kind of folklore connections to other things we've talked about with this one. She could also be appeased by leaving offerings of food on Christmas Eve, and the offerings were sometimes left on the roof. So there's that roof motif again. And this perched, which is her group of Wildmen, are kind of similar to Krampus. They're kind of like a man-goat hybrid, similar to like Pan or a horned hairy beast man or like, a goat man type figure. You got anything before I move on?
No, I'm just kind of fascinated on all the blending of this. I have something I'm going to end up getting into once you're done, but I don't want to jump ahead of myself, so I'm trying to just sit back for a second before I throw my ideas on this one.
All right, well, I'm almost done with my notes here. So we're going to move on to the Apple Tree Man. So in English folklore, the Apple Tree Man is a wild man of the orchards, and he's a green man-like entity, and he was said to be the spirit of, or perhaps live inside of, the oldest tree in the orchard. And on Christmas Eve, it was customary to give offerings of apple cider to the Apple Tree Man. And this also has a lot of connections to like druids and tree worship and things like that. And for all of you guys out there who might not be familiar with druids, they considered the oak tree to be a representation of their deity. Mistletoe was also sacred to them, and they often associated it with fertility. So that's where the whole kind of practice of kissing under the mistletoe came from, was basically, this ancient druidism, which just goes to show that Christmas is a pagan holiday, whether people want to think it is or not. So the last thing I'll leave you with is a quote. It says, "Bigfoot and Belsnickel, and yes, even Santa, are wild men in the archetypal sense. Granted, some are wilder than others, but all exhibit behaviors and characteristics of folkloric wild men. Covered in hair or furs, rapping on windows and doors, howling in the night, climbing on roofs, even engaging in gifting exchanges." So, I thought all this was really interesting. I think it's cool to see how modern folklore kind of gets twisted. And, we always talk about the game of telephone, and something as normal and accepted as Santa Claus has, these kind of really weird pagan roots. And something I also thought I would mention, Paul Stobbs, who is the Nephilim Look Like Clowns guy. I know you've had him on Inquiries before.
Still trying to get him on this end, but I haven't been able to get a hold of him.
Yeah, so in his book, he talks about how, the wild man tradition of Europe grew out of tales of the Nephilim. And he puts like a pretty strong case forward for why this is the case. So, I think it's kind of interesting to think, Santa Claus could be a way, way, way down the line representation of the Nephilim. And just kind of closing out the other things I kind of thought of when going through this was, your idea of the others, or, elementals, fairies, ultra-terrestrials, whatever that other thing is that kind of interacts with human beings and humanity. It seems like it has a deep connection to like this wild man, green man, Pan type figure. And that also gets back to like the man-goat hybrids and Baphomet, which we've talked about on the show pretty regularly at this point. But Baphomet was this kind of pagan god, deity, whatever you want to call it, that the Knights Templar, which is the group that eventually, quote unquote, became the Freemasons, or said to worship. And if you're familiar with the Devil Tarot card in the traditional Rider-Waite tarot deck, the figure on the Devil card is the Baphomet. So, just a lot to unpack here from Wildman, Nephilim, Bigfoot, and how all this might be connected. And, we're basically, quote unquote, worshiping all this stuff now under the guise of Santa Claus. So I thought that was really super interesting.
Dude, Christmas is literally the most blended holiday in the entire world. Like, you can't even figure out where any of the origins came from. But also, it's kind of one of those things where it's like a group thought type of thing, because it seems like all of these things kind of popped up in these different regions all at the same time. And I mean, just to get into the whole Christian aspect of Christmas, I mean, obviously everybody that's like a Christian even kind of acknowledges the fact that, you know, Jesus would have been born during summer, and that Christmas isn't necessarily the day that you're, you know, celebrating you're just acknowledging his birthday rather than celebrating it on the day. And I'm assuming the reason for this was, you know, when everything was kind of shifting over, when everybody was converting into Christianity, they had this massive pagan ritual holiday. So you have to replace it with something. So rather than telling people that they can't celebrate this day anymore, I feel like they kind of just shifted it over, like, all right, this isn't his birthday, but we're going to celebrate his birthday on this day so that everybody can still have some type of like a festival or something. But I don't know. Like I said, Christmas is so blended that it's impossible to find the origins of anything. Like the typical motif of, you know, the little fae-like beings following around seems to be this common motif that's almost everywhere. Like getting into like the Scandinavian Christmas thing. And I'm going to try to paraphrase this quickly, because I think I talked about it maybe last year on the Christmas special or before that, or on some Christmas special at some point. But the whole like connection with Amanita muscaria and Christmas, which is, you know, the red mushroom with the white dots on it, basically comes down to in Scandinavia, there would be this tradition where around Christmas time, the shaman, which would be this guy wearing, you know, that would show up in a sleigh. He'd have the reindeer, everything like that. He'd have like the big furry coat on, all that stuff, which in a weird way, you know, a shaman is a wild man all on its own.
Absolutely.
So just going into that anyways, but he would show up and he would have the Amanita muscaria, and he'd have it prepared so that people would be able to ingest it, to be able to, you know, have this experience through Christmas time. And where the association from Santa Claus came from would have been the shaman and the way that he looked. Where the association with reindeer would have came from was that Amanita muscaria is actually a neurotoxin, and the only way that people can ingest it is if it's actually consumed by a reindeer first, and you actually ingest their urine. So that's the connection with the reindeer. And then getting into, you know, the connection with ornaments, pine trees. Typically, the Amanita muscaria was found underneath pine trees, so that's that connection with that. The ways to dry it would be that you would cut it and put it up in the tree until it was able to dry. So that's where part of the tradition for ornaments comes from. The other way that you would dry them out is you'd put them in socks and you'd put them above your fireplace to let them dry, which obviously gets into the whole idea about stockings and everything. And a lot of the time after people would have these mushroom experiences, they would end up seeing little elves, which is why the typical motif of elves comes in with the holidays. But the part where it gets really, really weird was in the early 1900s, the whole like Santa Claus depiction really wasn't associated with a lot of Christmas stuff. A lot of the old Christmas stuff, if you look at it, is these little elves. It's Amanita muscaria mushrooms, a lot of Amanita muscaria mushrooms. So there is definitely a connection with that. And it wasn't until the early 1900s that Coca-Cola started brand recognizing and taking over the whole idea of Santa Claus, and they created the modern image of Santa, that Santa really started becoming this prominent figure on all these different Christmas decorations. So again, such a weird blending. And just the fact that our modern depiction of Santa comes from Coca-Cola is absolutely like just completely shatters my paradigm of Christmas. Like the fact that, again, he's Coca-Cola colors because Coca-Cola created that brand for him. Just weird to think about.
Well, and you know, the thing about it is a lot of people, you know, give Halloween a lot of crap for being like the pagan holiday or whatever. But I mean, nothing against Christians or, you know, people who are celebrating Christmas and celebrating Jesus's birth and, you know, the real meaning of Christmas, quote unquote. But I think it's kind of funny that a lot of our Christmas traditions are basically some combination of pagan ritual and just sheer, you know, capitalist bull crap, you know.
That's what it's inevitably turned into. I mean, honestly, people talk about the spirit of Christmas, but unfortunately what it's turned into in this modern day world is it's all just a materialistic capitalist holiday. But, you know, trying to find some connection to having some type of spirituality with it, I guess. I mean, it's a weird thing, man. Like, anybody that's celebrating Christmas is obviously going to get into all the Santa Claus stuff. They're going to get into all of that facet of stuff. So it almost just kind of makes you wonder, like, if there is the whole idea of like grand rituals, like what are we actually doing as a society here, you know?
Yeah. And you know, that's something I've come across quite a bit is, you know, the idea that putting a tree up in your house and decorating a Christmas tree and even like the star and things like that, all that is just very, very thinly veiled ancient pagan ritual. And, everything we know about, the elites and people in power and, the Freemasons and things like that, and whoever's like really pulling the strings, it does kind of make you wonder, has all of this kind of commercialization of Christmas arisen to kind of perpetuate these massive fucking rituals that basically the entire calendar is rotating around?
I mean, just something weird to think about. They say everybody's in a better mood. Everybody's a little happier around Christmas. But I don't know if you've ever been to a store, but I don't think that there's a time of the year when people are more shitty than Black Friday or near Christmas. So talking about a grand ritual where maybe everybody's getting amped up in something they don't realize. I mean, again, go to the store near Christmas time and tell me that there ain't something weird going on.
Well, and, like I said at the top of the show, I had, a very traditional kind of upbringing and Christmas and holidays and all that. But, Christmas really wasn't like a fun time for me growing up because there's a lot of stress and, it was, you had family coming over and like your mom spent all day cooking and yelling at everybody. And it took me, probably the past few years to get where I didn't like kind of dread Christmas. So yeah, I mean, like you said, it's supposed to be, the happiest time of year and all that, but in actual practice, that's kind of rarely how it works out, it seems like.
Honestly, same here for me. Other than having the kids around, that's probably the only thing that makes the holidays a bit happier for me. But it's the parent struggle too, that it's like up until Christmas, you're stressed out, you're struggling, you're trying to make sure your kids have a good Christmas, and you don't really enjoy it until the night of like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day when the kids are happy, everything's happy, and you can just sit back and like really relax and actually enjoy it. But honestly, man, if it wasn't for me building my own family and breaking away from my family, then I probably wouldn't enjoy Christmas now as much as I do.
Yeah, that's something that I talk about with, co-workers and friends and stuff all the time about the holidays. Like just this kind of cultural, almost shame around the idea of, oh, it's a holiday, you've got to spend it with your family whether you fucking like them or not. It's the holidays, you're supposed to spend them with your family. And this could be people that the other 360 days out of the year you'd never want to be around, but you're supposed to spend your precious vacation time off around people that you would never hang out with before, just out of some fucked up sense of obligation that it's the holidays. Like I just don't get that. And I think it's beautiful when people can kind of grow past a lot of that and create their own traditions. And like you said, with your kids and your family, you're doing that. And, something that started out as kind of a sad memory for you watching Scrooge by yourself on Christmas Eve now is this beautiful thing you've been able to build with your family. And I think that's really cool. And like I said, it took me a long time to get there. It's been the past few years, but yeah, I've enjoyed probably this Christmas season more so than anyone ever. So I'm thankful for that.
Talk about a weird thing that I didn't expect to get into today, man. The whole idea about like Christmas from a broken home, something that people don't ever really talk about.
Well,
like,
my home wasn't broken, but like Christmas still wasn't fun,
Oh yeah, fair. I mean, your parents were together? I thought that your parents got divorced at some point.
No, they were alive my whole life till they died. So.
Well, I guess messed up families in general then. But yeah, I wasn't expecting it to take that somber note, but I'm glad that, just as a whole, man, we've gotten to a point where we're able to enjoy the holidays. And hopefully that's being said for everybody else out there. Hopefully everybody out there that's listening to the show is trying to get the best that they can out of this holiday season, trying to enjoy the little facets that they can. And just to say it out there, man, just because they're family, it doesn't mean that they're blood. So, just because you have to go and see maybe your family or you feel obligated to see your family this holiday season, don't let them take away from you just enjoying like your night alone watching Christmas movies with the Christmas lights on and just enjoying the season itself just by yourself or with your close loved ones.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, man, like you're going to build your own traditions. And unless you learn how to do that and you build your own traditions, then you're just going to get stuck in these same ruts.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the bad thing about it is a lot of times it takes some sort of tragedy to get you out of those sort of ruts and those old quote unquote traditions that you didn't really enjoy. And, I think people should do whatever they want to, don't feel obligated to spend time with people you don't like, whether it's the holidays or not. So anyway, that's my Orin Felix words of wisdom for tonight.
My words of wisdom too, man. I mean, it's an occult concept, but it's very, very true. The only way to be able to rebuild something is if you destroy it first. And sometimes that's what it takes.
Well, hey, this has been a very occult themed show so far, so I think that's fitting.
True. So I guess kind of hopping in towards the end, we have two different things that we could potentially go over. We could go over some holiday fun facts if you'd like, or we could potentially cover some more creatures.
That was kind of somber. Let's do the fun facts.
Fun facts. Okay. So if you want to, I do have a funny one for the end of the show. There are only 17 of these fun facts. Maybe we can go back and forth reading them since I've been butchering the show tonight.
Sounds good to me, man.
All right, perfect. All right, let me bring it up here. Totally up to you if you want to read the description afterwards. Main point that we're trying to get to is the header here, so you let me know.
Okay. Some European stories involve Krampus, a horned beast who kidnaps children. OMG, festive. I think everybody knows about Krampus. I don't think we need to go into that one too much unless you want to.
Well, I mean, just to leave the very, very basic premise, the whole idea is bad kids, Krampus would come, beat him with the stick, put him in a cage, steal him. That's the end of it. That's the Krampus story. There you go, everybody.
Man, who knew that Christmas was so much about like fucking stealing and eating kids? It's almost like the elites came up with this too.
I find it strange how much Christmas. Okay, so we have this whole idea of Christmas with the whole Saint Nick, happy, all of this stuff, but the rest of the world, it's not like that. Winter is horrifying. It's scary. You don't know what the hell is going to potentially happen. There seems like there's very few places that actually have this happy, optimistic look to winter. Everywhere else is something's going to come and it's going to fucking murder you.
Well, yeah,
so you better behave.
That's pretty much what I've read, in the passage from the book, where the footprints in book is like this idea of the holidays being a happy time is a relatively new construct. And before that, it was a time where, fairies or other things would fucking come and eat you.
Let's say it was probably maybe like early 1900s that stuff really began to switch around.
I mean, I would think with like industrialization and when things became less rural and people weren't living out in the wilderness and they had electricity, it probably started to turn then,
I mean, so apparently by the time it hit the 1940s, there was strong enough Christmas spirit that I don't know if you remember that whole story, but during the trenches during World War II, they actually stopped on Christmas Day to actually celebrate with each other, and then as soon as the day was over, they went back to fighting again.
Which, I mean, just shows you what bullshit most wars are. Like, if you're not angry enough to not have Christmas with this motherfucker, you're probably not angry enough to go to war and fight him tomorrow,
That's what I'm saying. You're just like having eggnog, you're celebrating, you're having a good time, and then it's like, 12 o'clock, back to the trenches, everybody.
Just go and shoot this motherfucker who you were just breaking bread with.
You just got to hope that you just got to aim for a helmet. Don't look for faces. That's what we got to do after the Christmas time.
He'll be like, oh, that's Gary from yesterday.
Oh, shit. Fucking Gary. Aim above the head. All right. Number 2. Carolers used to break into landlords' homes and demand their best food and wine.
I think we should re-implement this in light of how damn expensive rent is now.
Dude, when you actually listen to some of the words of some of the old Christmas carols, it definitely makes sense. Like, they're demanding shit. Like, there's one of them, what does it say? Bring me out your figgy pudding. And it basically says, do it now, otherwise there's going to be a problem.
Well, so, I mean, when you just got to have that figgy pudding, man.
It's just underlined, but nobody really realized it. That's just a weird thing to think about, man. Can you imagine being back in the day? And that brings a whole different idea to oh shit, the carolers are back.
Well, and that kind of gets back to things we've talked about on the show as well, where like, these festivals in ancient times where, kind of the slaves and the lower class for, this one specific time of year could kind of flip the roles, and the higher ups and the elites would kind of serve them and whatnot. It was a way to like blow off steam and make sure that the workers and the slaves and the lower classes kind of stayed in control, quote unquote. And this is kind of right there along with it. If the poor tenants, once a year get to carol and beg for food and wine, and then, the other 12 and a half months out of the year, they go back to just being happy to have a place to live. It's just kind of a weird connection.
I mean, that's one of those things, too, that it's almost like a trick-or-treating in a way.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, like, the same concept. And the idea is basically like, all right, we can have all this stuff prepared on this night. They can come. They could feel like they're doing something, like they're actually begging, but we can turn it into this fun, festive thing and be like, oh, no, don't take my wine. And then we can just give them a couple bottles of the cheap stuff, and then they can go along their merry way.
Yeah. Keep all the good figgy pudding for yourself.
Exactly.
All right. You want me to read this one?
Yep, and then you're going to have to read a little bit because we need a little bit more on this one.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Number 3. It was once illegal to celebrate Christmas. So in 1659, the Massachusetts Bay Colony literally banned Christmas with the penalty for keeping Christmas. The reason was that, quote, festivals, as were superstitiously kept in other countries, were a great dishonor of God and offense of others. If you were found not working on the day, or God forbid feasting, you would have had to pay for every such offense 5 shillings. That's about $48 today. So, I mean that kind of goes back
I'm just
to
going
what...
to celebrate Christmas.
Do what?
I said at that point, I'm just going to celebrate Christmas. $48, I think, is worth it.
But no, that kind of goes back to what you were talking about, this whole idea of Christmas and everything we associate with it's a very, very new, for all intents and purposes, motif.
And it's really, really funny that they called it penalty for keeping Christmas when they're basically saying it's anti-Christian, but within the name, it's really funny because the name literally breaks down to Christ Mass. So, like, just that name, they should have picked, like, keeping Yule season or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, the word Christmas kind of pulls away from what they're trying to do here.
We know those like Puritans are kind of crazy and had some not so great ideas, but I do think it's kind of funny that basically they acknowledged that the institution of Christmas kind of goes against God, you know?
Which is definitely true.
Yeah.
I mean, just saying. Number 4. The idea for tinsel could come from spider webs. An early European story went that a widowed mother was too poor to pay for Christmas decorations. So some kind spiders spun beautiful webs over their tree, which shone silver and gold in the morning light. Some say the story inspired the invention of tinsel, and some Ukrainian and German homes will decorate their tree with a jeweled spider thanks to the tale. And honestly, I've seen that before. I've seen the jeweled spider before on people's Christmas trees, and I've never known where that came from. So kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's not something I'm
every day.
Really familiar with, but you know, down here we don't have probably as much of like a Ukrainian or German population as they do like in the Midwest. So I think that probably makes sense why I'm not really familiar with that one.
Yeah, after the whole, like, the thing that happened a couple years ago, at least my area, we got, like, a really big influx of Ukrainian people. So, yeah, that might actually be what it is exactly.
Yeah.
But going on to the next one. Sorry, you got to love these ads on articles. They like to throw you around.
All right, number 5, mince pies or tarts of flesh, as they were called in 1390, used to contain real meat. Puritans also attempted to ban them altogether. Man, those Puritans would ban something in a fucking heartbeat, wouldn't they?
You know, that seems a little weird. Fucking ban it.
People are all about, like, you know, canceling things on the internet and all that now. Like, the Puritans, those are the originators of cancel culture.
That's the truth. Did you want to get into the description of this one?
Yeah, I'll read this one real quick. So, in fact, according to a 1390 cookbook, they were made with pork, hard-boiled eggs, and cheese, spices, saffron, and sugar. Then, in 1615, the recipe became an entire leg of mutton and 3 pounds of suet. Go in along with salt, cloves, mace, currants, raisins, prunes, dates, and orange peel. Some say that under... I can't see that. Can you make it a little bigger? Under Puritan Cromwell. The pies were banned in England for being too frivolous and luxurious.
Cromwell is the one who banned dancing and all of that stuff. Okay. When the monarchy fell temporarily and the Puritans took over in England, fill in a little bit of a historical backstory, there was this whole war back and forth where, you know, people didn't like the way that the monarchy was doing things. So the Puritans took over for a while. Cromwell was the one that ran that, and he got to a point where he just banned every single fucking fun thing in life. So eventually the monarchy took back over because people went and sided with the monarchy because he just banned every single possible thing that he could.
So Cromwell, he is the Chancellor in Chief.
Yeah, he's definitely the Chancellor in Chief.
He got big mayor from Footloose vibes.
Ain't that the truth? But and maybe he was inspired by that.
Maybe so. However, though Washington Irving wrote in 1850 about, quote, the fiery persecution of poor mince pies throughout the land when plum porridge was denounced as mere poppery. This wasn't true. The bill never passed.
So, fuck you, Cromwell. All right. Number 6. Allow me to introduce you to Mari Salid, a festive horse skull. The Welsh tradition, which is still observed in some towns, may come from a folktale about a mare that wandered for days while Mary had Jesus in what was originally the horse's stable. The story goes that the horse was looking for somewhere to birth her own fowl. Ultimately, though, nobody is sure about the origins. What is for sure is that the horse skull draped with a cloak and crowned with flowers and lights is trasped through some Welsh villages between Christmas Day and the 12th to this night. And also, I want to go back and throw this in because we didn't end up covering the article that has it in there. But the Yule cat, going back with the Yule lads, the Yule cat was this giant cat that if you didn't have a nice, new, proper sweater, would come and attack the strings off of the sweater. So basically, you didn't want to be caught outside with a gnarled sweater. Otherwise, you would be attacked by the Yule cat. And obviously, the idea behind that is making sure that kids are wearing warm enough clothes so that they aren't going to receive frostbite. But yeah, forgot to throw that one in because it ended up covering it in the other article. But I want to make sure that we at least touched, even if it's out of context, the Yule cat for a second.
So again, just a cautionary tale.
Again, yep, just a cautionary tale.
All right, number 7. The Nutcracker is a beautiful ballet based on a truly terrifying kid story. Ever heard of The Nutcracker and the Mouse King by German author E.T.A. Hoffmann? Well, it's the tale on which the ballet is based. And its terrifying plot starts when a 7-year-old girl slices her arm open after being shocked by seeing her toy Nutcracker come to life. Her grandfather, or so it seems, tells her a story about a man cursed by a witch to become an ugly nutcracker, to which the child, Marie, says she'd marry him anyway. So she gets taken to the toy kingdom to actually marry the nutcracker. Marie is a specter of a character, a girl who exists only to take care of her imagined prince, a girl who vanishes, disempowered and subjugated to a kingdom ruled by dolls, reads a Salon article on the story. So this kind of has like fairyland, fae folk, abduction type vibes to me.
Yeah, actually, weirdly enough, I just listened to the audiobook of this a couple days ago, and it literally starts off basically with her, you know, I don't want to say fall in love with this little toy soldier, but like becoming like obsessed with this little toy soldier. And when she starts imagining him come to life, one of the first images that it talks about is this 7-headed rat or mouse king that it's trying to attack them. And he decides that he's going to like take arms. He, you know, makes all the other toys in the cupboard come to life and they're about to go fight this thing. So yeah, 7-headed mouse king in the very beginning of this book. So I just want to point that out. That's bizarre all on its own.
Yeah, kind of like the old Disney stories. Like if you really look into them, they've got like super dark, demented roots.
Dude, right in the beginning of the book, too, it starts off with the one brother basically beating the shit out of the Nutcracker because he's like, oh, it needs to be able to take damage. It needs to be able to do this. And he knocks all the teeth out of it, breaks its fucking jaw, and this little girl's like trying to save it and like fix it and like takes part of her bow and everything. So it gets really decrepit really, really quick for being a Christmas story. But hey, some of the best Christmas stories are the darkest ones because I'm going to go back to saying A Christmas Carol is hands down probably the best Christmas story ever written. Nutcracker, probably close number 2. Number 8. Oh, your town doesn't have a festive visit from a cannibalistic scarecrow who roams the fields searching for children? Sounds like you're in need of a hands trap. Hands trap. Here's another of Europe's evil counterparts of Santa. The hoboy is he evil. The story goes that he made deals with the devil to make money and was eventually excommunicated from the church before wandering the fields of Alice as a scarecrow. In one story, he slices and eats a child before being struck by lightning by God, who apparently thought that this was the final straw. Parents warned their kids every Christmas that the monster would come, abduct some badly behaved children, and drag them into the forest, never to be seen again.
So here we go again. Christmas is just about like stealing and eating kids.
Yep. And I like the fact that this one has a festive scarecrow. Another one that seems to have this weird connection that there's a lot of underlying traditions that are very similar with Halloween and Christmas, just to point it out there.
Okay, so
Could it
this
be because
next
they're
one
both pagan?
sounds like a fun one. Number 9, Santa comes down the chimney for lots of spooky supernatural reasons. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
If there's one thing evil creatures like to do in old-timey folk tales, it was come down chimneys. Witches did it. Goblins did it. In fact, in 19th century Pennsylvania, Dwight's Belsnickel, who we just talked about earlier, did it too. And the creature would whip children who had been naughty, the legend goes. Terrifying. Well, that wasn't
Number
nearly
10.
as good as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I was hoping that it'd be a little bit more than that, but I think it just goes into basically what you were talking about, that the whole tradition of coming down the chimney and being up on the roof is way before Santa Claus. It goes into a lot of like the stuff that you dived into. So weirdly enough, I feel like what you dived into actually added more context to this and actually made it make sense.
Yeah.
Number 10, the tradition of making, oh shit, gotta love articles when the ads pop up. The tradition of making gingerbread home at Christmas supposedly came from the deeply spooky and cannibalistic Hansel and Gretel fairy tale. In the original fairy tale, the house was made from bread and the roof was cake, and over time, the story became that the whole house was made of gingerbread, possibly inspiring the Christmas tradition. But the story isn't exactly comforting. It focuses on two abandoned children who face death at the evil hands of a cannibalistic witch, which eventually fooling her into climbing into her own oven, but much for a family activity. No. So, again, another story of cannibalistic trapping and tricking of children who don't listen.
All right. Mistletoe was once used to pardon criminals. Back in the day, the priest of York Minster used mistletoe to forgive criminals. Holding up sprigs of the plant, he would offer public and universal liberty, pardon, and freedom of all sorts of inferior and wicked people at the Minster gates and the gates of the city toward the four quarters of heaven. Look, I'd consider kissing him under those circumstances.
Would you not, Warren?
I mean, I was just reading the article. I don't know. What's he wearing?
I'm assuming some type of cloak, but the question is, what's underneath that cloak?
Okay.
Is it nothing? Number 12, leaving out milk and cookies for Santa is a tradition that blew up in the hardships of the Great Depression. Per the History Channel, the Norse tradition really took off in the U.S. in the 1930s, when Americans were going through a huge financial depression. But in the time of great economic hardship, many parents tried to teach their children that it is important to give to others and to show gratitude for the gifts they were lucky enough to receive on Christmas. History Channel says, look, I'd want a cookie too if I'd scrape together enough cash to buy my kids presents in a recession. So basically it's saying that the whole tradition of Christmas cookies, all that stuff started popping up around the 1930s, particularly in America, and was intended to teach your kids to, basically appreciate things that were given to them. Obviously, it goes back farther into the whole aspect of offerings, but I'm assuming this is probably where it became more, commercialized and popularized in the U.S. as part of the Christmas tradition.
Yeah, well, and I think it even says in the article that, this is when it took off in the U.S., so obviously, in Europe, where a lot of these traditions came from, it probably does stem from these offerings to, the Belsnickel and, all these crazy-ass winter goblins and creatures and whatnot.
Chicken or the egg, sounds like it. You know what I mean?
All right, number 13. We could leave out stockings because of an old myth about poverty. It says, Donald E. Dorsey's book, Holiday Folklore, Phobias, and Fun, oh, that's good alliteration there, links the tradition of the story of a 4th century bishop who overheard a distressed old man fretting that he didn't have enough to give all 3 of his daughters a dowry. That was a big deal because the unmarried women and women without a dowry would often stay unmarried, often became destitute. So the story goes that St. Nicholas, the OG Santa, snuck down the family's chimney and stuffed the drying stockings by the fire with gold.
That's a cool story. I haven't actually heard that one before.
Me neither.
All right, number 14. Babulas could derive from the decorations that were created to deter witches. I'm assuming that... am I saying that correctly?
I have no idea. I've never seen that word in my life.
I'm assuming that's probably another word for ornaments.
Maybe the bulb type ornaments. I wonder if that's what it means.
Once known as Yule balls or fairy balls, the sphere ornaments were originally shiny and filled with threads of glass. They came to the U.S. in the 17th century via England, and they were designed to entrap evil spirits, and some say our baubles come from that tradition. That's kind of interesting. I've never heard that one before either.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Which is also really, really weird if you think about it, because the bulbs are shiny and you look in them, and it's almost like a mirror, like something's trapped in it. I don't know if when you were a kid you'd ever just sit there and stare at your reflection in a bulb, but you'd imagine that somebody's trapped in there. So that's kind of a weird thing to think about, that you kind of subconsciously knew that without really knowing it.
Yeah, that's a fun one. I was not familiar with any of that.
We're trying to give you guys a bunch of awesome fun facts that when you guys go and see your family this holiday season, you guys will have some new conversation starters. And I feel like that might be a perfect one for you guys.
Yeah, you don't have to talk about politics or religion and get in fights this Christmas. You can just talk about all these fun facts that you learn from bizarre encounters.
Unless you're in a Christian household, then maybe don't bring up a lot of the pagan folklore stuff, because that might not go over well. But
or do.
Overall, you should, because I feel like it would make some good conversation away from politics and religion. But anyways.
All right, number 15. The Good King Wenceslas, I guess is how it would be pronounced, from A Christmas Carol about helping someone in a snowstorm, was based on a real person who died horribly. Despite the wholesome message of the song, Wenceslas I, Duke of Bohemia, born in 907 AD, had a pretty gruesome death. On the 28th of September of the year 935, his brother, tired of sharing the country with his sibling, plotted his demise. He, along with noblemen, stabbed and lanced him in the church as he was praying, ultimately dismembering him in front of the holy building.
Well, that was a dark Christmas story. Yeah. Number 17. Toasting drinks came from the frankly gross sounding tradition. Would you drink your toast bread in a shared bowl of wine and eat it? No. Well, you wouldn't have it fit in the 14th. Well, you wouldn't have fit in the 14th century Christmas party, as that's exactly what carolers looked to do back in the day. In fact, one chant went, "Wassail, wassail all over the town. Our toast is to white and our ale is to brown." And you thought minced pies were weird. So, kind of weird. Apparently, they used to throw bread into their glass and toast it, and that's where toast came from. But just to give some more interesting context, because I heard this one on a video the other day, and I've been waiting for a place to stick this. Do you know where the original idea of why people would like toast came from?
I do not.
So back in the day, when they would have these big sit-downs to try to, rule out how to, go about a treaty, things like that, part of the way that they would basically say that we're all in this together, there's no poisoning or anything happen, was that they would have everybody clink the glasses together. And the whole idea would be that the liquids would mix within the glasses, because you were supposed to do it hard enough that everything would mix. So then if one glass was poisoned, everybody would get poisoned. And that was where that originally came from.
So that's why,
but
in
that was kind of
Viking movies and shit, they aggressively clink the glasses together.
Exactly. So it's actually historically accurate to do that.
I did not know that.
Also, as an extension to that, do you know why it is also proper to shake with your right hand?
Because you used to wipe your ass with your left hand.
No,
right?
Very, very close. But it's because you would draw your sword with your right hand. So if you came up to somebody and you shook their hand with your right hand, it's basically saying that you're defenseless, and you're basically putting your hand out, saying that, you're not going to draw your sword on them.
But
that one was kind
what
of
if you were left-handed and you drew your sword with your left hand?
Well, then I guess you're going to fuck it up for everybody, eh? That's why they don't trust lefties. That's where it came from,
There you
right?
go.
And then another last fun fact for you guys about greetings, because this is the last one I have on the top of my mind for you guys. The whole idea of tipping your hat. Do you know where that came from?
No.
That was also intended to be a sign of showing that you didn't have a weapon hidden under your hat. So if you were coming up to greet somebody, it was a sign of showing that you didn't have anything hidden and that you weren't going to attack them. So all of these normal greetings that we use regularly today, we don't realize it, but the whole intention of it basically came from showing somebody that you weren't going to attack them with a weapon.
Wow. What a time to be alive, right?
Yeah, right? All right, now hopping into the very last one.
All right, so this is the last one, and it looks like it's going to be a bit of a repeat, but we'll go ahead and run through it anyway. So number 17. In Iceland, the Yule lads take the place of Santa, and stories about their punishments for badly behaved kids were once so creepy it became illegal to tell them to children.
This is the other cool part of the fun fact, is that those stories became illegal. Go ahead, you can read the last two paragraphs.
Now the celebrations just mean kids leave shoes out and are either rewarded with candy or rotten potatoes, basically the stockings tradition if you think about it. But historically, parents tormented their children with horror stories of the Yule lads, whose names include Meat Hook or Meat Hooker, Doorway Sniffer,
you better say Meat Hooker.
or Boy Doorway Sniffer, and Window Peeper. Man, they didn't even talk about the 69ing cow guy. So badly that it became illegal to tell the tales to kids in 1746.
I'm glad that that added that context, because we also got a little bit more of a connection with the stockings concept, and we also I forgot to mention the fact that those stories were illegal to tell forever. So I'm glad that we ended up coming back to this one.
Yeah, we circled back around on a lot of stuff there.
And to leave you guys in the usual Bizarre Inquiries way, we of course have to leave with something a little bit more comical. So of course, I have a propaganda film of Santa Claus special for you guys. So to give it into a little bit more context behind this, after this aired in 1983, the station was flooded with calls from angry parents complaining about their traumatized children. And let's bring this one up, and then I'll give a little bit more detail here after you guys get to see this awesome film.
Everywhere in the world, even on San Francisco's very own Green Street, the Soviets are dreaming of a red Christmas. If they could, they would change our way of life. To them, nothing is sacred. Watch Green Street Reds, starting Tuesday at 11 on Channel 7.
Well, yeah, there you go. Santa getting blown up. And in 1983, animated commercial for a KGO-TV, Channel 7 San Francisco News special, Green Street Reds, controversially depicted Soviet missiles shooting down Santa Claus to promote a report on Cold War tensions. This advertisement generated significant viewer distress and was quickly removed from broadcasting.
Man, aren't we glad that Rocky went over and just solved the Cold War so we didn't have to have Santa Claus blow up?
Right? Otherwise, he would have been blown up by an NORAD missile.
Yeah.
Good old Santa Claus.
Yeah, a crisis averted.
Even Christmas can't escape government propaganda. So I guess that's a good spot to end on.
That's some good propaganda.
And, exactly. And starting to wrap up, for anybody that didn't catch it, this will be our last episode for this year because we will be gone on Christmas because that falls on a Thursday like we normally record on. And New Year's also falls the following Thursday, which we usually record on. So we will be returning after that with Bizarre Inquiries. So, Orin, do you want to give him some more info on that?
Yeah, that's right. So our next episode will be Bizarre Inquiries, and that's going to be on Thursday, January the 8th. Going to be roughly 7:15 Eastern Time on the Bizarre Reality Media YouTube channel. So you guys be sure to submit questions, videos, anything you want us to inquire about, and also join us in the chat during the episode. And if you guys would like to get in touch with us or be a guest on the show, Shane, tell them how they can do that.
First and foremost, depending on which show you're coming in on, you guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com or Inquiries of Our Reality podcast@outlook.com. Or you guys can get a hold of us on social media through both shows, of course, two different pages. You guys can also get a hold of us through the submission form, which is up at the top of both of the link trees. And the last way you guys can get a hold of us is by calling or texting the Bizarre Reality Media hotline. And you guys can call or text that 24/7, and that number is 313-364-1551.
And if you guys are interested in supporting the show and all the hard work that goes on to make it possible, Shane, how can they do that?
First, you guys can go and check out the Patreon with 2 tiers available, ad-free / early access and full access. And there are 7-day free trials available so you guys can see what it's all about over there. And since this is our last show for this year, there's going to be a lot of new stuff coming for 2026. So hopefully you guys will be part of that with us.
And you guys can also check out the Bizarre Reality Media merch store with t-shirts starting at the absurdly low, oddly specific, and holly jolly price of just $15.68 plus shipping.
Woohoo! Ho, 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 ho. And I know times are tough out there, especially with the Christmas season. But if you guys would like to support the show in some other ways, one of the best ways that you guys can do that is by leaving a review anywhere that you guys happen to listen to our show. And our general rule is what, Orin?
1 and 5 stars only.
And of course, we will either give you a big shout out on the show or ridicule you. Whatever way you guys want to play it, ball's in your court.
And you guys can also follow the show on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and just do all the internet things. Y'all know how the internet works.
And of course, you guys can share the show through word of mouth. Grassroots support from listeners like you guys is exactly how this show grows. So share the show with enemies, friends, anybody that you think might potentially want to listen to our bizarre bullshit.
And you can also catch live shows and all of our video content.
And every single thing that we mention is all available in the link tree, which is available down in that show description. And this holiday season, make sure that you stay bizarre, you keep it super holly jolly, and we'll miss you guys until the following year. So we'll be back, we'll return, and as always, we'll be remaining and staying bizarre. Bizarre. Bizarre.
Shitter's full.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. And a Happy New Year.
Perfect.